G'day guys, welcome back to Supercoach with DR and welcome to the Round 5 stock market video. Hope you are having a cracking week so far. We've got a big round of trading coming up. Now for some people, you may be looking at a couple of rookies, looking to even do a double downgrade this week because we do have some really nice fallen premiums on the horizon. If we think about Bont, Tom Green, Tim English, all dropped some absolute stinkers last week, so they may present some really nice value coming up in the next 2 weeks. You've got someone like a Charlie Comben this week. If you look right in the middle here, we've got Elliot Yeo. Are you willing to take the risk with his durability? If you think his body's right, then I would absolutely look to go there. But personally, I've still got some concerns there. Colby McKercher. Damn, what carnage it was with the McKerchers, the Sanders types, the Jai Clarks. Not making much money anymore. Are you willing to keep on to them and hope that they come good? Or do you think it's time to say, see you later and start to move on? Some big decisions this week, guys, but I'm here to help you. I'll absolutely do my best. So let's stop the intro there. Let's get right into it. Only other thing I'll mention is you'll probably notice on the top of my head that I'm wearing our official Swordplay beanie. So we are doing a bit of a merch drop. Our website will be open in the next 2 days. Supercoach, even swordplay.com. So stay tuned for that. And if you are interested in grabbing a beanie, a tee, or a hoodie, then there'll be plenty of options available. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoy. As always, we're going to start off with the 500k plus defenders. Let's get into it. At the top list this week, we have Elliot Yeo. What a game he played last week and what a pick he's been to date. I was prepared for this when I decided not to select him, and although it's mighty tempting to bring him into my side, I didn't start him for a reason, and I think I need to stick to those principles. I'd be more upset selecting him and seeing him go down with injury again than watching him dominate as an anti-pod. You may have a different take and focus more on what I was saying last week about the treatment he received in Qatar. A score of 157 is massive. He was doing everything. That long go at a stoppage was unreal, and he just looks so strong. The issue is that he was playing against the Tigers midfield, headlined by Thompson Dow, and the Eagles actually won. So I don't know if he'll have another ceiling game like this in him unless he's playing against really lowly midfield. But in saying that, 96, 110 and 130 against Port, the Giants and the Swans is pretty good, so I may be completely wrong there. The Shees, simply a must-have. I've been saying the same thing for weeks now, just has not failed with scores of 130, 113, 128, 124, and a massive 159 last week. Interestingly, that was his exact fantasy score as well. Doing all the things we love to see, but a slight concern may be a potential Finn McGuinness tag this week. Not sure if you'll go to him, but possibly something to prepare for. You may want to take the chance that he does cop a tag and then hop on him if he gets to a friendlier price, but with a break-even of 70, he could smash that and become even more out of reach. Hayden Young. Oh, man. I've got the yin-yang symbol and the fire symbol there because ever since I traded him, he's turned his form around and looks like the player I was expecting him to be this year in that midfield role. After averaging 66 in his first 2 games, he's bumped that up to an average of 121.7 over his last 3. I should have kept the faith in my preseason research, but he was looking terrible in the early rounds, but averaged 28 touches and 7 tackles over the last 3. So I've probably seen enough now to be confident again to recommend him as a trading option. With every game he plays, he gains more experience and develops more synergy with his co-mid. So still some upside to this pick. Houston had a very solid season to date. Obviously has a super boot symbol on him because his kicking is elite. A good change. Look, I won't say a change. Look, he's had a few kick-ins the last few weeks. So in round 1 he had 2, then 1, then 0. Wasn't looking great, but had 5 and then 4 in the last 2. So I see that as a bit of an extra bonus, a very good chance of finishing as a top 6 defender this year. Someone I'd be really happy to own, probably the tier below your Ryan and your Sheasel. So jump on if he's one that you like, but keep in mind that his Adelaide Oval run won't last forever. If you're a non-Dacos owner, I think he's a buy now with a break-even of under 110. Don't worry about the fact that that's in the red because we know he's got that terrible score in his system. But on his day, he can do 110 in his sleep. So you can wait it out if you want, but fine to get him this week. Luke Ryan, I've got as a must-have now. His last quarter against Port was insane. I was loving it as an owner. 10 kicks at 100%. This is just in the last quarter. Contested marks, intercept marks, even a little cheeky free kick for. 165, 127, 130, 111, and 145 are serious scores. This bloke is playing out of his skin. The only thing putting you off is the fact that he costs so much as an uber primo defender. Now, I can't say too much else. I've got so many notes here on Lukey Ryan, but all I will say is that I think he's now a must-have officially. Lockie Whitfield, I've got in my top 10 defenders, probably just outside the top 6. Looking great at half-back, great run and carry, super damaging, but obviously very uncontested. Durability is always a little bit of a concern for me. But if you believe in his body, you can get him in. The Giants are in fantastic form. He's back to his most productive Supercoach role, and obviously we also know he's a top-end talent. And look, I don't know about James Sicily. He would need to show a lot more for me to even consider him this year. Already lost over 85k just from his starting price. And apart from a respectable 123 in round 2 against the Ds, he's only pushed out scores of 43, 89, 95, and 92. So in current form, and the way the Hawks are structuring up, I'm passing. But watching closely if he gets back on his bike with his Supercoach scoring. Jeremy McGovern, after 4 nice tons to open the season, he did come back to earth slightly with a 72. In saying that, remember that the Eagles got up against a depleted Richmond, and for the first time in a long time, the ball was actually spending more time in the Eagles' forward line, so had limited access to the footy as compared to previous weeks. You know how I feel about him, great player, but don't trust his body. And Tommy Stewart hasn't had it all his way the last couple of weeks, but very, very high on my radar as a trading option next week. I'm planning on him for sure. He's already lost 60k, and if he scores 100 this week, he'll go down even more, around the 556k mark. So I'm really focusing on bringing in fallen primos with that decent history rather than paying top dollar. And Tommy fits the bill. 105, 134, 99, 77, and 108 isn't fantastic, but aside from that, nothing too bad. We aren't seeing his ceiling, so I see that as a bit of a positive because surely a ceiling game's coming soon, which some people may disagree with, which is fine. So I'll be watching him like a hawk this week, hoping that he plays well, but not too well, so I can pick him up at his lowest price point and still be confident in doing so. So Tommy Stewart, still a top 6 for mine. Onto the defenders, 250 to 500k. Up the top, we have Mac Andrew, looking great and does find himself on the bubble this week. Scores of 101 and 92 are fantastic. We know he was an early draft pick a couple of years ago. He obviously needs to build up his strength, although I don't think he'll ever be a monster, just not his body shape, but very athletic, has good speed, takes a nice mark, some nice intercepts, and sort of floats through the air. Unfortunately, he does come at a very awkward price, and if it was 50 to 60k cheaper, I'd be seriously considering. Job security looks okay. I just feel at the price, it's too much of a gamble for me, and I'd probably target someone like a Charlie Comben at, 90 to 100k less. If Mac continues to pump out scores in 85 plus range, he'll be a really good pick, but I just don't have the confidence personally. It's pretty much now or never, so if you decide to go there as a pod pick, all the best of luck. He does certainly look like an exciting player. Zachary Williams is a hold after his best game of the season. Was on 75 at halftime after collecting 16 touches up until that point, but really fell off a cliff in the second half to end up on a 92. But I'll take that every day of the week. Still has some decent coin left in him. If he can get close to replicating scores like that, a definite hold for now. Same as Massimo, in my opinion. You can see the symbol there. Bad to good. Got his cash gen back on track, which is music to many coaches' ears, unless you traded him out last week. Bad luck if you did. That 90-plus score has now saved him from being traded out of thousands of teams, and it looks like he may be even attaining midfield DPP after this week. Not 100% confirmed, but it is looking likely. He did have his first 2 kickouts of the year, so a nice little bonus to get him above 90. I wouldn't be counting on those points from kickings, though, obviously. I think he has at least 1 to 2 more weeks in him, and then we can reassess whether or not it's time to trade. You just don't know how these players are going to score. So it is hard to really plan ahead with your Massimos of the world. But for now, that break even equals an easy hold. Look, if you need the cash, then you can trade him out, but I'd only be doing that if you're getting a must-have Uber premium, particularly in midfield. And I'm not keen on Mark at this point. If you wanted to jump on, it should have been a couple of weeks ago, but the ship has well and truly sailed. And to be honest, he's delivered 2 great scores and 2 average scores, but a very solid pickup by the Crom. Onto the defenders under 250k, and at the top of the list this week, no surprise, we have Sam Closey. I really don't have any words to describe the start that he's had to his Supercoach career. Amazing stuff, seems like a 10-year veteran of the game, doing absolutely everything. He's got the potential to set a new price rise record this week if he scores a 99, and as we've seen, he's more than capable of producing that. I won't waste my breath anymore. Trade him in if he didn't go early last week, or simply delete the app. I have heard an unsubstantiated rumour that he may have some hamstring tightness. Take that with the biggest grain of salt, but definitely keep your ears open because that would create some absolute carnage. I won't spend too much time on his teammate Will Graham either. I'll give you the best advice I can in 6 words. Bring him in at all costs. Either in your defensive line or your midfield, he seems like a decent on-field option as a 4th Gold Coast mid. It really seems like he's taken over that Flanders role with a little bit of a sprinkling of Humphrey. And remember to double check that you are trading in Will Graham from Gold Coast, not Caleb Graham. You would never forgive yourself if you made that mistake. Jace Burgoyne, left field option as a pod, a cheaper alternative to, say, a Mac Andrew type, but there are probably other players ahead of him at this stage for our rookie services. Nice 90 plus on the weekend, though. Tommy Brown, ouch if you traded him in last week. My advice was that ship had sailed, and he was only able to back up his 95 with a lowly 29. This is why it's dangerous to jump on a rookie after a price rise, because if they put in a stinker, their cash gen can dry up in the short term very, very quickly. The other point with this is that it's also dangerous to go early. We see, like with Tom Brown here, a really nice score, that 95, but then the 29 after that. So always very dangerous doing this. But with Tommy, he's on the buy this week, a certain hold. Blake Howes also on the buy, but has reset his break even after 2 solid performances. You can trade if you want, but he's still got some coin to make. And as we saw in the opening round, he can junk it up to get to a 90. Very team dependent this one. Arguments either way, hold or trade. But one thing is that his job security looks really, really good with Melbourne's defensive injuries, and he could benefit with no Salem and Bowie. So up to you what you want to do with Blake Howes. Josh Draper, scores of 35, 68, 21 and 42. Isn't fantastic reading, but look, at least he's making some coin, unlike Caulfield, Reed, Hoare, so I'll be just holding for now for that slow burn. And Caleb Mitchell could dead set lose money after this next game, so unfortunately not an option for us, even with that handy DPP status. On to the big boys in the midfield, 500k plus, and I'm really going to zip through this slide because for most of these players, I've talked about them endlessly week upon week, and not a lot has changed with some of these blokes, so I will go through it pretty quickly, but send me a DM if you want some really detailed info on any of them. The man up the top, Sam Walsh, I do have 2 symbols there, the buy now and the worried symbol. 166 in his first game back, looked phenomenal, this fella. The only thing put me off is that back injury. We know that it can flare up at any time. The other thing with back injuries is that the timeline for a return is almost impossible to predict. So I'm just no for Sam Walsh. I'm going to anti-pod him for 2024, and I hope it doesn't burn me too much. But if you do trust that his body can hold up, he could be a fantastic selection. Connor Rozee is a pod pick and a buy now in really nice form. 3-rounder of 126. It's also better than Zach Butters, so 10 points more there. And you are saving about 36k. I would much prefer Butters, but if you already got Butters and you can carry another player in that buy round, remember it's really friendly, that buy round with Freo, then go for Connor Rozee as a pod. And shout out to my man Dan Mashman. You've been enjoying his services for the last few weeks, mate. Well done. Jack the Man of Steel. I'll tell you what, I'm saying top 5 midfielder. I've talked about him every week as well, so not a lot to say here, apart from there is no kryptonite in sight. He is an uber mid. He's killing if you don't own him. Still a low break even of 70. You can jump on him this week. Nick Martin will be getting future DPP status. You can absolutely lock that in. So if you do currently have him in your midfield, easy switch down to defence next week. Noah Anderson I do have as a buy now. Probably should have had the pod sign there as well, because I think that he's definitely lower than Connor Rozee. And what have I got there? I've got the pod on Jack Steele. Jack Steele is certainly not a pod. It was meant to be the Superman symbol there. I won't go back and edit that. Too late now. We're already into the slide. But yeah, Jack Steele is certainly not a pod. Anderson is, though. Whoever you want to go out of the Gold Coast mids, whether or not that's Anderson, Real and Touk, I think you're getting good player. My order personally would be clearly Real first. And then I'd probably go Anderson, then Touk. But personally, I would be selecting Touk because I like watching him and he's one of my favourite non-Lions players. So either way you want to go there is fine. But Matt Rao this year, he's going to be top 8 in my opinion. And we can now officially stamp him as an uber elite. So well done to Big Abs who selected the weapon Matty Rao on his starting side. Libba, damn, really concerned about him. I hope the poor bloke's okay. I'm not going to get into this concussion business because I believe that it was handled extremely poorly. But again, it is what it is. What can we do? Obviously got the Bevo symbol there as well. Josh Dunkley is simply a watch at this stage. There's still something that's not quite right with Dunkley. I want to see a couple of ceiling games before I consider him. At 604,000, plenty of other better options at the moment, but certainly don't count him out for the year. Already mentioned Touk. Really nice price at 582. There is still value to this pick if you want to jump on. Zach Butters, even though that break even is slightly in red, not too much, he's an absolute buy now for me. Should be a top 5 mid and one that you really want to end with in your side. And Lachie Neale, similar to Dunkley, is certainly a pod, but unlike Dunkley, I think that he's in much better form. The issue with Neale is the fact that he is carrying a little bit of an ankle injury. Whether or not he's been able to rest that up and get it right, I'm not too sure. He's the type of bloke that can really push through pain barriers, and I'm expecting that even if he's 75% right, that he'll still try to get up and play the game. So that is a slight concern for me. The break-even is only in red by 1 there. A lovely 3-rounder of 121. So if you got faith in Lachie Neale and you got faith in his body, Brisbane are starting to play some good football, you could go there. But for me, I'm going to wait just a little bit longer. And if I feel that he's up to scratch, I can get him at a decent price, I may look to get him in then. LDU, I really don't know what to say. If you are interested in Janeth's take, we had a question from the great Rain Man from X. Shout out to you, brother, an absolute legend of the community. But Janeth gave an answer on that one. He is a current LDU owner, so head to the Swordplay potty if you want some more detailed info on LDU. But we all know what the case is here. Just a pooey season today, but keep him on your watch list. Talk about a bad season. Jordan Dawson is, I think, even on another level to LDU. We even saw a bit of a role reversal last week, spending a little bit more time up forward. So he was someone that I was actually targeting as a fallen Uber. But at this stage, it doesn't look like he's even going to get to Uber status. So keep him on your watch list. But for current owners, man, I really, really do feel for you. If you started Merritt over Dawson, well, wait, I would not like to know what the difference in the numbers are. Maybe you can calculate that yourself, but if you did go him over Merritt, you would be absolutely crying because this man is in such good form at the moment. A bloke that you do want to have in your side sooner rather than later. We all know about the run that he's got coming up. So from this list, in my opinion, he is clearly the best buy. Errol, you can see in the notes section there, I'm a little bit worried about his top 8 prospects this year. So much competition. He was a real breakout pick last year, really entered that uber elite status, but really haven't seen it this year. There's been the one game we've seen a bit of a ceiling, but apart from that, has been disappointing. So I'm certainly waiting for now. Not overly confident, but we know he's got the talent to absolutely get there. Rory Laird, I'm skipping just for now. Got the old man symbol, but he's got a 3-round average of 102. Just not enough. We're not seeing the best of Rory Laird anymore. And really, I don't think that he'll probably get back to that elite level. Caleb Strong is really coming into his prime, the opposite to Laird here. Did have a bit of a breakout season last year, but really does enter the uber elite. A 3-rounder of 110 is certainly a lot lower than his 3-round average to start the season. We now see that break even all the way up to 155. You may be slightly disappointed if you did pay up for him at his top price, but in saying that, he clearly looks like a top 8 mid this year. even potentially top 4 as well. So I've got the target symbol there as well as the binoculars, and it's pretty much the same for the next 5 blokes that you see. Track I am massive on. I can almost guarantee you that I'll be trading him into my side. He does have the bye. The frustrating thing is he comes up against Richmond with that break even of 156, but again after that game his break even may be even higher because that 140 will go out. It all depends on what he scores against the Tigers. I've just got this terrible feeling that he goes around that 156 and there may not be as much value to him. So to be honest, if you want to go him directly after the bye, you could probably still do that even with that high break even. We'll likely lose a little bit of coin though. Clary not interested in whatsoever at the moment, but if he's been able to refresh after the bye, get his hand right again, then he could be a fantastic option. But for now we just wait and see, and if he starts to find some form, definitely will look to bring him into my side. The Bont, Darcy Parish and Tom Green, we see the same symbols there. Now, Bont and Green are in an absolutely different level to Darcy Parish. I still see them as the top 2 mids for 2024. I have not lost the faith, but if you're non-owners, this is an absolute blessing. I wouldn't jump on this week. Obviously, with that high break even, you probably wait, 2 more weeks. So, not this week, not the next, and then jump on. Depending on what they score this week, you could get them at an absolute bargain. So I'm spewing as owners of both players, but you've really been kissed here if you don't own either the Bont or Tom Green. And Darcy Parish, 176 for a break even. The Anzac Day specialist, like Zeret, he's got a fantastic run coming up. We know that he's got history with soft tissues and hasn't had the best preseason to date, so I am not overly keen on this pick. But if he gets to 500k before Anzac Day and you're looking for a cheap pod, he may be one that you could bring into your side. On to the midfielders, 250 to 500k, and as you can see here, no real trading options this week, but certainly a few to discuss as potential trade out options. A very familiar name at the top of the list, it's poor old Jared Lyons. He's been sitting there with a break even in the negatives for weeks and weeks. He's looking to rise 55k if he can just hit an 80, which if he does play a full game of football for the Lions, he will score. So in the notes section, you see the hold, the chop, and the omission. If you think he could get a game, then feel free to select him. But if not, it may be just time to move on and get someone else in. A really awkward situation still with JL. Jeremy Sharp, we definitely hold for this week. Then I think we probably trade the next because that big score will be out of his system and he may even potentially start to come down in price slightly. Matty Roberts still at least has a couple of weeks in him. If not more, he will attain DPP status. Been fantastic. Obviously had the rest last week, which should be good for his younger body. A 3-round average of 91 is absolutely fantastic. Horn Francis was kissed a little bit last week, I think, with that contested mark and pretty much game-winning goal. But if you did go there, I think it's worked out short term. If you were hoping for DPP status, I think that's going to be very, very hard to get, at least in the first round of DPPs. I've got the Horn symbol there as well as the ship, because I think the ship has sailed here. 475,400. Unlikely to be a forward, a pure midfielder just for now. I just don't think the value's there. Wouldn't be going there myself. Riley Sanders, he was bevoed last week. We all know the story about this, so I'm not going to go into it. All I will say is this very quickly. I'm holding Riley Sanders. The break even is still in green. I would be super, super surprised if Bevo did decide to sub him this week. I know Mick Malthouse has called for his omission even, teaching a bit of a lesson for throwing the toys out of the cot. But I can see why Sanders did this. I don't think he's got an H as well. I think I've butchered the spelling. I think it's R-Y-L-E-Y if you are looking for him in the search bar. So I do apologise about that. But with Libra out this week, I think Sanders does play full game. I think he'll play that inside mid role. We've seen when he does play that role and isn't sub-affected, then he can score really, really well. So I'm holding the faith for now, and I'm hoping to keep on to him as one of my on-field midfield options. So I'll say keep the faith with Riley. Don't trade him out this week. At least give him the chance to show us why he shouldn't have been subbed off. You know, Oscar Baker, you all saw the clips of those clangers out of bounds on the field. What were you doing, Bevo? I'm not going to get into it. Let's get over Riley Sanders. But for me, an absolute hold this week. Same as Bonner, no reason to trade him out. Maxi Holmes, now someone asked me to give you the numbers for Max Holmes. I forget who that was. Shout out to you, legend. Always happy to take on requests. 468,700 with a 3-rounder of a tick under 90 with a break even of 82. That's still achievable. Has a little bit more coin to make if you can hit that 95 plus mark for a score, but he is a pod. There are better options that you could look to trade up to. I'm not huge on keeping him for the long term, so for the Max Holmes owners out there, even though the Cats are in good form, may have a bit of a decent run, I think it's fine to upgrade if there's a player that you've got in your sights. You could even keep him for another couple of weeks and then jump on a discounted Christian Petracca, for example. And Colton McKercher, 282,900 with a 3-round average of 45. Terrible scenes last week, subbed out of the game early due to injury. Now, I'm not sure if he's going to get up this week, but if he does, for me, he's a sell. We've got the sub symbol there as well as a sell. People disagree with me, and I've had some really great conversations with others that do, and I can completely get their viewpoint. To them, they say, well, no, he's a talented type player, and we're going to back him in to get back to those good scores. He may lose a little bit of coin in the short term, but just say in a month to 6 weeks, he'll be right back on track. The issue with that for me is, can you wait that long when we need to start upgrading? Probably not for me. It's too much for a risk with the potential role change as well. We've seen him spend a lot more time in the midfield. He even started there when he got injured last week. So are they going to continue with that? I'm really not too sure. If that's the case, I'm absolutely out of the pick. But if he goes back to that more friendly defensive attacking type role, then I think that you could hold him. But for me, I'm absolutely trading if he plays. Remember, if he doesn't play, he's not going to lose coin. You could use him as a loop this week if you don't have a loop in your midfield. So plenty of reasons to hold if he doesn't play. But if he does, too much of a risk for mine. I'm not willing to lose that much cash. On to the midfielders under 250k, and certainly not pretty reading here if you're looking for a trading option. Keep in mind though, we've already discussed Will Graham, who is a defensive midfielder, so here's the clear option in your midfield this week. Jacob Ware is at the top, 22,400 rise this week if he can score just under a 60. He's been a pod rookie, a pretty decent rookie as well. Absolutely hold for this week if you own him. Now, the next 3 blokes, Jack Carroll, Sam Berry and Jai Clark, in my opinion, are all fine to chop this week. With Carroll, his job security isn't looking fantastic all of a sudden. We know that he was sub last week. We have my man Jono there, Jack's cousin, in the notes section. Shout out to you, legend, one of the longest serving members of my channel and an absolute ripping bloke. But if you own Carroll, it's completely up to you. You can either hold this week, hope he gets a full game, or even if he's sub, he can get a 30 type score and not lose too much if you've got other concerns. But absolutely fine to chop for me. Sam Berry, bit of a slap in the face. Traded him out last week, then comes on as the sub if you don't mind. Gets the game-winning goal. Just looked like an absolute monster. And with Crouch out this week, I think that he should play a full game. So was it the wrong move? At the time, it was the right thing to do. The break-even is still in red after that low sub score, or a couple of low sub scores. So if you still own Sam Berry, this may be a little bit of a blessing. And he could actually hold this week. If you want to chop, also okay. And Jai Clark, this really tough one. For me, he is a chop. If you look at that break-even compared to the 3-rounder, not pretty reading at all. We got to remember as well that if he is the sub or even gets subbed off, then the chances of getting anywhere near that break-even aren't high at all. So the issue with trading him out is you haven't really made much, 60 odd K. So you may want to say to yourself, look, even if he goes down the short term, I'm just going to leave him on the bench and surely he's going to start to make some coin. But I don't even know if he's going to be selected this week. Up to you with Jai Clark, but personally for me, gone out of my side. On to the rucks, and at the top of the list this week, we have Ethan Reid, a very talented player, but at over 170k with an average of 49, it's not enough to justify upgrading your R3 position, in my humble opinion, so I'll pass for me. I think the ship may have sailed on Meek, and you'd be very happy if you decided to save cash going Meek over paying up for an English last week. That move could literally be season defining. Spent a lot of time on the bench in the fourth quarter and still punched out a respectable score against Wits to achieve a 3-round average of right on 100. With Reeves out short term and Meek performing well, I think his job security looks okay for now. If you think he can average 100 plus from here, I suppose you could still trade him in. But for me, I think it has sailed now. Same with Cherry. He's still a decent break even here, but I just don't see him as a season-long keeper. As a current owner, you're happy. Just hold for now. But again, ship has sailed as a trade-in option, in my opinion anyway. The clear option here, in current form, is Rowan Marshall. Lots of jumping on now, and I view him as probably the best after Gawn now. Only the one failure with a 79. Apart from that, it's been nice reading. 127, 106, 147, and a 120 last week. I think he may have even been underscored with that 120. Looks like an extra mid at times. Finds the ball easy for a big man. Had almost 30 touches last week. I think it was 28 from memory. And has a high contested rate, as we know. Super around the ground in his prime. Body looks great. Seems the safest primo ruck to bring in this week if you don't have Gawn and don't have English. You would certainly look at Rowan, I think. If you... Oh, look, it's a big decision. Do you wait on Tim or do you just jump on Rowan now? That one's completely up to you. Grundy holders, they'd be hoping that he comes out pretty refreshed after his bye. Many like myself traded him last week and we've already moved on, but if you kept the faith, you'd be much happier than if you upgraded to English. So if he hits triple figures, he'll make a little bit of coin this week. Dogger is a very interesting one. If you're planning on flipping him, that should have been last week due to the fact he was most likely at his highest price point. Other people like me really want to see what that role looks like with Shrek back on the side. It's a risk for sure, but coming up against West Coast, hopefully he can score well even when playing forward. Is going to be a really close watch this week. But when we take a look at our other forward primo options, remember he does have DPP, he could still very well be a top 4 averaging forward for us. So just keep a watch on Dogger. Kieran Briggs, Big Kiz, is a pass for me in current form. One to watch if you're after a pod, but no reason to go there at the moment. And Timmy English, alarm bells going off everywhere here after a sub 64. And Bevo's comments after the game. This man... I'll tell you what, I'll quote him. You are seeing some change within that inside mid area and even in the ruck area with Sam Darcy playing a bit more ruck and Tim English playing a bit more forward. Yep, that's right, Bevo. Play your all-Australian ruckman up forward more. Genius. I'm guessing it may be because English has a foot out the door and they're looking into the future. But it's really hurting owners, particularly those that don't own Gawn. Your first week of relief, isn't it really? But all of a sudden, Marshall looks so much better. But the value English will present in 2 weeks' time will be incredible. So I'll be watching very closely and then making a decision with some more data. Aside from that 58, he scored decently in all his other games, minus some ceiling with scores of 119, 138, 124 and 117. So don't forget what this bloke is capable of. The funny thing is, last week, he had his highest CBA rate for the year with 86. So Bevo makes these comments. And in the last 2 weeks, we've seen it at its highest point. So I'm not losing faith, and I'm really hoping to bring him in for an absolute bargain in the near future. On to the forwards, 500k plus, and don't we have some players in some fantastic form here? Look at those 3-round averages. Up the top, Isaac Heaney, Sir Isaac. No need to say anything here. If you don't have him, he's absolutely killed your season. He's an absolute definition of a must-have. First, by the length of the Flemington Straight. Mr. Shea Bolton, a wonderful last 3 weeks from him, and all of a sudden has really rocketed himself into Supercoach relevance. He's always been relevant, particularly with our lack of forward options this year. But for me, I've always said this about Bolton. I'm always really hesitant to buy him when he's in really decent form. That sounds silly because obviously you want players when they are in good form, but he's the type of bloke to give you some real floor games. Now, you may look at his 3-round average and assume that he's spending a lot more time in the midfield, but his CBA rate for the last 3 weeks has been 56%, 33%, and then 57%. So in round 2, it was 61, and we didn't see a fantastic score at all. So I wouldn't be attributing all of his great work to a CBA rate because the stats suggest that it's simply not the case. But he's absolutely on fire this week. My man Jules, crazy frog, shout out to you, brother, actually captained him last week. So we talk about a crazy frog. It seemed crazy, but a really nice move from you, mate. A bit of a pod as well. So if you want to go there, you can, but I just can't go there at the moment. I'll definitely jump on Sammy Flanders. I am an owner myself, but if you're not, go there without hesitation. 566,000 with a break even of 81. You can see he's had the roll change symbol there, but that roll change is being really good for him. Wherever he plays, whether or not that's that midfield role, rotating slightly forward, or he's down back, which I think he will certainly be for at least the short term anyway, going into the medium term. It's a good role either way. So jump on Sammy Flanders if you don't own him. Now, Dane Zorko, I'm not going to spend a heap of time on this because I've sent so many DMs to people that have been asking me questions about Dane, but all I'll say is this. Check out my X feed. A big shout out to user 17727488282. Bit of an interesting X handle there, but user sent me a little clip from a doctor by the name of Jim Bostock, who's been, I won't get into it, some procedures with Dane Zorko, basically put him some needles into his legs. So it sounds a little bit morbid there, but according to Zorko, just after one needle, his body felt fantastic, been running the best he has since 2019. So he said his body's looking great or feeling great. The eye test does suggest that as well, but at his age, it is just a big risk. Is he going to get suspended, do something stupid? I'm not too sure. So if you really want more info on Zorks, send me a DM. It's pretty much a copy and paste at this stage, but I am a no for now. If we're talking later in the season, absolutely. And Charlie Curnow, I've got a new symbol there, top 10. I'm saying from now he most likely will finish in the top 10 averages for our forwards, just given our lack of options. I don't think we go there now. 545k is way too much for Charlie. We wait till he has a bit of a low game, and that certainly will happen. Happens to all key forwards at some stage. So I'd be waiting for that. And then if you're really keen, jump on at his lowest price point. On to the forwards, 250 to 500k. And at the top, we have Sam Darcy. Loving this bloke in my side at the moment. A fieldable option as well. Playing a little bit of time. Oh, there's the alarm. Can't edit that, sorry. Running out of time. But he has been playing a little bit of time in the ruck as well. So that doesn't necessarily bode well for someone like an English, but it certainly does for Sam Darcy. In the notes section, I do have the DPP with a tick because he is looking likely to attain that status. That would be super handy. Looping with your Livingstons, your Dogs of the world. So if you didn't jump on, this is a huge miss, but I'm assuming most people did. If you jumped off Harley Reid, like I know some people did a couple of weeks ago or even last week, you would be spewing with that decision because he came out and his first 100 plus. A big shout out to JG from the Supercoach Hub. He did predict this in one of our team chats, so well done to you, legend. A great hold. We all own him. Well, most of us own him at this stage. Still very high ownership. An easy hold just for now. Joby Cameron is a pod selection. Has not been setting the world on fire this year, but with a break even of 20, under 460k, if you think that he can manage to even go a 90 plus average, then he could be someone to bring in at that price point. But for me, I just don't have enough faith here. Nat Fyfe is a certain hold just for now. Break even of 28. Looking like a forward keeper if he can keep his body right. But for now, I'd just be watching. Don't trade him in, but certainly don't trade him out. Buku's a certain hold as well. Break even of 30. Been playing some good football. Ollie Dempsey and Aaron Cadman. I do have the chop symbol there, but I also have the watch symbol. I'm not saying they are chops this week. I think we probably hold Cadman for one more and then let go of him. You can hold on to him if you want. He's got, maybe 10k to make this week, but for me, I think it's fine just to move him on. With Dempsey, I would hold for this week at least, but then he's not going to be making a heap more cash. So if it's time to cash him out and then upgrade to a primo such as your Flanders or even your Heaney's if you haven't gone there, I think that's a good decision. But if you are relying him to give you some decent points on field, then also fine just to hold for the short term. Tommy Powell, I'll skip Isaac for a sec. Tommy Powell, I won't mention too much about him because I've talked about him to death, but again, a pretty decent score on the weekend, and for me, he is still looking like a season keeper. Harry Mackay is an absolute pass for me. That break-even of 134, he's sort of come down to earth again, but if you did start with him or jump on before that first price rise, I think this has still been pretty positive stuff for you. Jack McRae is an absolute watch. Who knows what's going to happen with him, and we've obviously got the Bevo symbol there. Could get Bevoed and has been Bevoed already this year. And Isaac Rankin, very quickly we're going to talk about him now. His scores from rounds 1 to 4, 97, which is okay, then 81, 68, 88, but it was a 121 last week. that's got us really interested. And why are we interested? Well, CBA rates from rounds 1 to 5. 37%, not too bad, then 11, 29, 27, but bang, up to 61 last week. And all of a sudden we see a really nice score from him. Now, we know that Adelaide haven't been playing overly well. They do need to change something in their midfield mix. Is this the change that they could be looking to make? Getting Isaac in there to give him a little bit of speed, a little bit of X factor around the football. We know that things just haven't been working. Your Lairds, your Crouch types, your Berry types, very similar players. So why not get a little bit of Isaac in there? If he continues with this decent CBA rate, all of a sudden, I am really interested in the pick. That break even of 49, that's still okay, because even if you go, say, 100 this week, we are only paying up 20 to 25k extra, plus we've got that data. It can give us more confidence in the pick if we see something that we really like this week. So I would be waiting on Isaac. I'm not super confident enough to recommend him as a trade-in option this week, but you can see in the notes section, he's got the role reversal symbol. If he continues with 60 plus midfield CBA rate, then I think he could be a solid selection in our forwards. And we'll finish off with the forwards under 250k. Thanks as always for sticking with me. Now, there are two names of particular interest here and a couple of others you could consider that we'll talk about in a sec. We'll start down at Georgiadis, key forward from Port, on the bubble for 230k. Talented player, but as the most expensive option on this list, I think we look for better value, and I just don't love selecting key forwards. Ramsden is also on the bubble, but don't like his scoring ability or job security, so another pass for me. Darcy Wilson, popular pick. We are about to see that 25 exit his system, which means he has some more money to make. DPP status is handy, one we can just hold for the time being. Corey Warner, his average of 32 doesn't interest me too much, but if he can become half the player that his brother is, the Swans have a very good one on their hands. I will go up to Lafau. I, like many others, didn't see this score coming, but very happy for him. Definitely one out of the box for a project type player, but he looks better with every game he plays. You'd be stoked if you trade him into his rookie price, because all of a sudden he'll make much more coin than I was expecting. Obviously on the buy this week though. On top of him, we have my boy Kai Lohmann, now over 200k after another really solid performance on the weekend. It's amazing what a player can do when given the opportunity to play consecutive games without being sub-affected. I put out a video last week with in regards to Kai Lohmann, and I did mention that he was the sub-risk. That was probably too real for me, and that's why I didn't jump on him. But with the news now that Zach Bailey will be out for 4 to 6 weeks, this bodes very well for Kai. The sub-risk will always be there, even if he doesn't start with the red vest, but at the same time, Fague should reward good form, and he did mention last week that Kai would benefit from playing more consistently. The role he plays isn't overly Supercoach friendly, but he's managed to score well during his last 2 games. You can buy now if you want, because there is more money to make, but for me, the ship has most likely sailed on this one. And then we've got the 2 North boys in Biggie Nguyen and Charlie Common. Now, as you can see, Biggie is a rule breaker and isn't yet on the bubble. Played a ripping game last week with a score of 89, 19 touches, couple of kick-ins, 7 intercept possessions, 3 score involvements, couple of tackles, 7 marks, one of those being contested, and some intercepts in there as well. Really great on the eye, a lot to like about his game. The issue is that there's competition for his spot, and Clarko has preferred to play Dawson over him during the first part of the season. Biggie was actually a late in for Dawson, so automatically that has us worried. However, Dawson is now out for 3 weeks, I believe, so he should have bought himself some short-term security. There's also Toby Pink that North have as an option, although I don't think that he's going to be a big worry for Biggie. Biggie's definitely in front for mine. I think this one is a dangerous one to go early on this week, but the Dawson news does give you a lot more confidence if you're going to go there. Personally, I'm going to watch him for another week, then most likely trading him when he's safer and definitely on the bubble. And strangely, we'll actually finish up the top with this one. It's Charlie Comben, biggest teammate, 227,100 with a break-even of -75. He'll make just over 70k this week if he scores an 80. He couldn't back up that mini monster in his first game, but still looks serviceable in his second game against a decent Cats outfit. Looks to be playing that third tall role, which is great and should allow him to continue to fly for those marks, back himself in and intercept. Given you play his third game this week, you are essentially also purchasing a defender because he'll obtain DPP status after that first price rise. So a couple of positives there. That could be really handy for making some moves. He seems the preferred option over Pink and Biggie when all are fit and available. So if you really want a detailed discussion about this bloke, listen to the Swordplay potty that we recorded last night or the night before. The negatives are the fact that we're paying over 200k, and if he doesn't punch out a decent score this week, remember that score will then be in his system for the next couple, and his cash gen may start to stall. The other question is, who are you trading out for him? If it's a Sexton type, it's not even technically a downgrade. You're paying up to get him. If you think you can make 150k whilst giving you some decent on-field scores, then I say go for it. If your forward line is stacked, or as stacked as you want it for now, you're not in need of an F6. You may have, I don't know, a Sam Darcy there, for example, or someone that you're confident enough with, then you can certainly pass on this pick. He's not a must-have. It's a very tough one to gauge for me. It comes down to your own gut feel, personal predictions, your trade out options, your forward structure, etc., etc. So pros and cons to welcoming Charlie into your side. Personally, I am still undecided, so I'm leaning towards yes, but slightly on the fence. If you had to put a gun to my head and say, are you going to go him yes or no this week? I'll say a yes. Tommy Berry really bounced back last week, which was super for owners that did decide to hold. With a break-even of 8, he's looking to rise around 25k if he can hit a projected score of 74. His scores have been all over the place, so who knows what he's going to go, but certainly some more cash in the bank for you if you do decide to hold. There's my alarm. Chris Burgess, 189,000 with a break-even of 20. He's going to be an extremely slow burn. If he is selected this week, I say hold and then probably flip the week after. Lazaro, also a slow burn, been sub-affected at times, but with a low break-even of 21, still a hold for now. Harvey Thomas, a really nice game the week before. 70 for a 3-round average now, break-even of 38, another hold, talented young player from the Giants. And Harvey Gallagher with a break-even of 62, it is in green on the screen, but that actually should be in red. Looking to lose money this week if he doesn't go above that, so he is a sell for me, but if you want to hold, you've got other more pressing concerns, then that's okay as well. So that's it for now, guys. All the best of luck with your trade ins and your trade outs, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Cheers, bye.